Welcome, everyone. I'm Deborah Olashansky, the Jewish Community Relations Director for the Jewish Federation and Jewish Foundation of Nashville and Tennessee. And I am thrilled to be hosting our call today because our guests today are two UTK Hillel students from the University of Tennessee in Knoxville. And I have my Go Vols, I'm in my orange for today in honor of the students and in honor of our connection to campus in Knoxville. So I'd like to introduce our guests who are both Hillel leaders at the University of Tennessee, Paige Motley and Naveed Nachmayas, and I will invite them to go ahead and provide a little bit of information and introduce themselves before we get started with comments and questions. So Paige, why don't you go ahead and go first?
Hello, everyone. I am Paige Motley. I am a senior at the University of Tennessee studying educational interpreting, focusing in ASL. I am originally from Annapolis, Maryland, and I grew up there, and I'm here for school, and I think I'll be moving back home by the end. I served as Hillel president for a year and a half, and now I am serving as immediate past president.
Thank you. Naveed?
Hello, everyone. My name's Naveed. I am currently a junior at the University of Tennessee, majoring in anthropology with a forensics concentration and Spanish. I'm the current president of Hillel. Before that, my freshman year, I served as the Judaic Tradition Chair, and then for a year and a half, I served as the vice president. I'm originally from Minneapolis, Minnesota, and I came to UT specifically for the forensics program. It's something that I've wanted to do pretty much my whole life since I was very young. So I'm very excited to be at UT.
Wonderful. So both of you are out-of-state students. Can you say a word about why you chose to come to Tennessee and specifically UTK Knoxville for your university experience?
So as I said previously, I want to be a forensic anthropologist, and besides having a really good forensics program with the Forensic Anthropology Center and the Body Farm, they just have UT has a really good program for anthropology in general as a holistic study. And I really wanted to get out of the Midwest. I wanted to find experiences in a different region of the country. So when I first heard of UT and the kind of program that it has, I was really excited. And so I did some research and it really seemed to be a good fit. And so I toured here and I really liked the atmosphere of the campus. So once I set foot on campus, I knew it. I was like, this is where I want to go.
That's wonderful. I have to say, during my years working with students there, it was similar. Once they actually came, even if they were coming from out of state, once they got to the campus, that was when they really fell in love and decided to study there. Paige, do you want to share just a bit about what brought you, what made you decide on UTK?
Yeah, so I actually didn't take the kind of traditional route. I went to community college after I graduated high school. And I was kind of just feeling it out of what exactly I wanted to do. And then I found the academic common market, and that is how I found UT. So I was able to get the in-state tuition by going out of state. And I found my major, and I just fell in love with my major and kind of fell in love with the school. I was able to connect with Tara at the temple in Knoxville, and I was able to work there with the kiddos for a little bit. So that is really helped build my connection at UT, and I love the school.
That's wonderful. And so for those of you on the call who are from Nashville, just to let you know, Nashville has provided a very sizable and significant grant to the work of Hillel at the University of Tennessee to make sure that there is Jewish life available for all of the Jewish students there on campus. And so thank you to the Nashville community for providing that support. So why don't you both say a word about, you just mentioned, Paige, how you got connected through the temple, but to say how you got involved in Jewish life and what sort of opportunities you have had as a result of taking on leadership at Hillel at UTK.
Yeah, so when I kind of connected with the temple, I connected with Tara, and then she has explained to me about Hillel. So I guess it was my sophomore year that I started at UT, And the first Friday night Shabbat, I was greeted by the past president, Emily, and she was just like welcoming with open arms, and so was everybody. And I immediately got on board after that, and I've been on board since. But it's just, I never saw myself in that leadership position role, but it's kind of encouraged me. And I think we've kind of been building Hillel up, and we're trying to expand it. And we've been able to all work together as a group and work with Tara. And I think that's helped improve my leadership skills and just kind of find that deeper connection to Judaism. Because I always say, people have heard me say this a lot of times, I feel like as college students, we're at that point where our parents aren't telling us to go to Sunday school anymore, or to temple for Friday nights. And we kind of have that own journey we're trying to find. And this is that time right now. So that has always been my like really important connection to Hillel. It's like, that's something I want to do for myself and build that connection to Judaism myself. And Hillel has really helped me do that.
That's beautiful. And yes, I do think that Hillel is the perfect way to do that, to start to build your own adult relationship with Judaism, as opposed to just the experience that you had growing up as a child in your family. Navit, would you share a bit about how you got connected to Hillel and what experiences you've had in your, I know you're just sort of coming into full leadership, but just say a bit about your experience with Hillel.
Yeah, of course. So I immediately sought out Hillel when I came to campus. I had orientation the May before I joined, or I came to campus in the fall, and they did a little club expo where you could just walk around, and Hillel was one of the tables I saw. So I immediately went over and I talked to Hillel. Tara, I believe, was at the table at the time, and I was just very excited because I looked up the statistics of like how many, like what's the Jewish population at Knoxville, and it was pretty small, but I knew I could find a connection. And like Paige said, the very first Shabbat, Emily greeted me with a hug, and I felt so special. I was like, oh my goodness, just so welcoming. And she later reached out to me and was like, hey, we're trying to build a board. Would you be interested in fulfilling the Judaic Traditions chair? And I was a little hesitant at first, but I say over and over again, probably one of my best decisions in college, saying yes to that position, because I got to meet a lot of people in the Jewish community that I don't think I would have met and gotten to know as well if I wasn't on the board. And being able to work with Tara so close and for such a prolonged period of time, getting to know her was amazing. And so I just always continued to want to be on board. From there, I went to VP, and I really love that position, being able to create different kinds of programming and volunteering events and stuff like that. I think it was a great experience for me. And then the next natural step was to be president. And so already this semester, I'm seeing a lot of great change and a lot of opportunities for Hillel to grow, which I think is phenomenal, especially considering like we're living in a COVID world, it's virtual. And so it's kind of hard to get that connection, but we're trying really hard. And I think one of the great things that I've been able to get out of Hillel, besides just leadership opportunities, is right now I'm doing a JLF, the Jewish Learning Fellowship, through Hillel. And I'm getting to work with a rabbinical student who is up in New York, and meeting other Jewish Hillel students from different colleges. And that's been a really great opportunity that I've gotten from Hillel.
Wonderful. So I do think that Tara Bain, who is the current UTK Hillel director at the University of Tennessee, Knoxville, is on the call. And Tara, at some point I may invite you to share some of your thoughts on it. But in the meantime, both of you mentioned the hug from Emily. So Emily Schulman was a former UTK Hillel president, she had just come into campus as I was moving out. For those in Nashville, she also happens to be engaged to Noah Geltzer. Just that's a strong Nashville connection for those of you who know the Geltzer family. But both of you mentioned the welcome from Emily and the hug and all of that. And I do know in my experience, like how important the welcoming of Shabbat dinner is. How are you maneuvering that now in a COVID world? How are you both welcoming new students and staying connecting to existing students in this new reality that we face?
One thing we're trying to do is provide more opportunities to gather. So instead of just doing a Shabbat every other week, we're trying to do Shabbats every week, different kinds of Shabbats to bring in different kinds of students of different backgrounds. We're also doing things that don't necessarily relate to Judaism, like we're doing Wellness Wednesdays, just as an opportunity to connect, doing different things. This past Wednesday, we did a guided meditation and it was amazing. I know each individual member on the board is trying really hard to individually connect to students, to reach out and check in and invite them, both students that aren't as active, but also students that are fairly active, to try to like personally invite them to our events, just so that we're able to connect as a board, but just as fellow Jewish students.
Paige, anything you'd like to add to that?
I just think that even like when we are doing the Shabbat pickups, Tara will like tailgate her car at this one location and everybody will come and pick up their stuff. I think just when they do come and pick up and just making sure that you have that connection and ask how are you doing today? Or how was your week? How have your classes have been, and making that connection with them just to know that we are here and we do care and we want to have that connection. And just kind of like, just when we all can gather, I know it's really hard not to be able to have an actual Shabbat dinner when we're sitting down, but just that time when we are just standing outside around Tara's car has just been like a great time to connect with each other.
That's wonderful to hear, and I'm sure that all the other Jewish students are greatly appreciative of all the effort you're making to keep people connected and together during this time. So it sounds like for the most part, your experiences have been very positive. I'm thrilled to hear it. Unfortunately, we're all aware that some of your experiences on campus haven't been so positive. And I wonder if you might be willing to say a few words about some of the unfortunate experiences that have occurred over the last couple of years that have been anti-Semitic in nature.
So I guess I'm trying to think of the timeline, just to chronologically go through it, but there's been 3 incidents where after the Pittsburgh shooting, we hosted a vigil and painted the rock, and then after that it was defaced. And that kind of was my first incident at the university that kind of spiraled into multiple things that had happened over my last 2 years. I think the biggest struggle for me was wrapping my head around that. Trying to word this correctly, but not that there was hate on campus, but that there wasn't the support from the university as much. That has been the hardest thing for me, because I think as a Jew, it's a hard truth, but this is our reality. There's going to be anti-Semitic behavior that happens. And it's just like, when you're able to lean on your community and be like, okay, like we're gonna all get through this together. That's really important. And when you don't have that support, that has kind of like made it really unsettling at times. But through those 3 instances, we've tried to work with the university to just get things changed. And I think we're finally starting to make progress. And I think there's going to be great things that are going to help our future Vols and Knoxville community. And I think it's going to be really, really awesome. But in the past, it has not been so awesome.
So yeah, Naveed, is there anything you'd share? And actually, Naveed, I'm going to ask you to just say a little bit more specifically about, because it has all pretty much revolved around what is called the Rock on campus. If you'll just say a bit about what that is and how these incidents have occurred.
Yeah, so the rock, for those of you who may not know, it's a pretty big rock on campus, and it is open to anyone, both students, faculty, staff, on campus, off campus. Anyone can come and paint the rock. And there's been some beautiful artwork, some amazing messages. But as Paige said, the first rock incident that I experienced, similarly to Paige, was the rock defacement in October, November, right after we joined campus. So it was a little unnerving because like you're coming in, I was a freshman, Paige first year on campus, a sophomore, and everything's super exciting and new. And then all of a sudden, like you feel a little attacked. I mean, it's a personal attack on every Jewish student when something like this happens. And so after that, we were able to attend a meeting with at the time, the interim chancellor. We now have a new chancellor. And we attended a meeting to kind of explain kind of our reactions to it, a little bit about what we wanted to see. And at least from my perspective, they were listening, but it was a lot of condolences. And so we kind of, I mean, I came out of that like amazing, like admin listened and we've had this interaction with them. Great. And then I don't know, I want to say it was either later that semester or at the beginning of the next semester, the rock was defaced again. I want to say it was it was random drawings on top of like one of the rock paintings for a football field, but there was anti-Semitic messages and symbols. And so once again, that was a little frustrating because it didn't seem like anything happened from that. And then after 9/11, 2019, I believe, the rock was defaced with, again, an anti-Semitic message. And so at that point, we knew what we wanted to do. We wanted to change the policy on the rock so that it restricted just anyone from coming on campus, because admin was able to figure out that it's one neo-Nazi group that's local to Knoxville that's coming on the rock. And so our logic was, well, if it's a group from off campus, why can't we just restrict them? With this policy change, and we've been wanting this policy change like since the first rock incident, since 2018. So this isn't something like that was in the first meeting that we had an idea. We said, why don't we just change the policy? It seemed simple enough. We now learned it's kind of quite of a process, but we've worked with various organizations on campus and different like administrative offices to try to get that policy changed. And it doesn't necessarily restrict anyone. Like if a UT group wants to sponsor you, then yes, like Hillel can sponsor the JCC. If the JCC wanted to come and paint something on the rock, as long as there's some sort of affiliation to a UT group. And so a lot of this for me is just because I don't want incoming freshmen to have to deal with the same kind of like helplessness and like nervousness as I did when I was a freshman. So I know like I'm really just trying to do this because I want to provide a safe place on campus because our Jewish community is so strong. And I love being a part of this Jewish community. And I wouldn't want anyone to not come to UT because of stuff like this.
Thank you. Yeah, Paige, could you just say a word about the petition that you started that was part of the process of really putting out to the campus community your plan, how you would perceive that this policy change would help in these instances? Because as Navit mentioned, it was determined that it was the same off-campus neo-Nazi group that was doing it each time. And so there was confirmation from the university that these were not students who were doing this. This was this off-campus group. So say a bit about the petition and the other efforts.
Yeah, so Navit and I, and with the help of Tara and Helene, we created this petition, and basically the policy, so the rock is a public domain, so anybody can come on campus and write on it, but it's the only part of our campus where that is allowed. And there, literally in the policy, it is written, everything is exempt except for the rock. So that's why Navit was saying we thought it was just so simple. So we had wrote out our petition and just kind of like, we wanted to express to everybody that this isn't just a Jewish problem. This is a whole campus, because there's hate that's coming. And majority of the time it is coming from off campus. Volunteers, they have their volunteer spirit and honestly are kind at heart, and people aren't just going to stir up the pot and spew hate on the rock just for fun. That's just not how campus is. So if we're going to be great volunteers, then why can't we just protect our campus from the get-go? Why do we have to allow these people to come on and then show our volunteer spirit by painting over top of it? So I think we wanted to advertise this as something that will help the whole community, the whole Knoxville, or the whole UT campus community. So we had sent that out to the different organizations, the presidents of those organizations, and we just wanted to get anybody to sign it, as many students as we could get to sign it. So so we know that we have the support from all different kinds of groups. We also sent it to the Knoxville Jewish community and all other Jewish communities across Tennessee. And then, sorry, what was the second part of your question?
Sorry. So the petition and then the other efforts, as somewhere, I think Navit mentioned that there has been a change in the administration. It's not the same chancellor that was the chancellor when the first incident happened. And sort of where you are in the process now, from my understanding, this chancellor has been much more responsive than the past chancellors.
Yeah, Chancellor Bauman has been amazing. And from the start, she wanted to tackle this. And so we've worked with her, and I'm forgetting Tyvee Smalls. We've also been working with him, and he's been awesome. He's been a great ally and great support through all of this. And once that administration changed, it was kind of like a light bulb that just went off, and it was just like, okay, this makes sense. Like we're gonna do this. So it's been great to work with them. It's been a little bit of a slow process, but they have been very supportive. And there's been a campus group that was created that is Students for the Rock. And that has been awesome, because anytime there is stuff that goes on, there's always people that are watching the live stream, and everybody gets together and they come and they paint over it. So yeah, so right now we are kind of at the hands of administration, and we've been working with them, and they're on board, but we're waiting for the Board of Trustees, their next meeting. And we're waiting for the Attorney General to kind of process that and approve it and everything. And we're just kind of going down the line, sort of playing the game until it is our turn to get recognized.
Right. I think you have learned that what you thought of and what it seems intuitively should have been a fairly simple request to change the policy so that only student groups or guests of student groups could post, because it is a public university and it is it's a little stickier than what you would imagine. But I want to say thank you for your perseverance, that you didn't let that stop you just because it's been complicated and time consuming, and it's required that extra effort. You didn't give up. You've kept up with the conversations and the plans with the administration. As I mentioned earlier, the current UTK Hillel director, Tara Bain, is on the call. And Tara, I'm going to invite you to unmute and just add your words on this whole process and about the student leadership and the student leaders and the leadership that they've shown on addressing this issue.
Hello, Nashville and Middle Tennessee. I am very honored to be here with you this afternoon. As you can see, just from Paige and Navit, we have an absolutely amazing Hillel at the University of Tennessee. Our students are powerhouses, and what they have accomplished in the last few years has just absolutely taken my heart. First and foremost, they are they are Jewish through and through, and it comes across on a daily basis. They are spreading their Judaism on a daily basis, and it's a beautiful thing to witness. As far as programming and that kind of thing, like Naveet mentioned, we are doing anything and everything that we can to make sure that everyone is connected right now. It's a really difficult time, but we are absolutely pushing the boundaries on what we have done in the past. As both Paige and Naveet mentioned, as far as the rock goes, I am in awe of how they have pursued this and tackled these challenges that have come before them. That we attended with the interim vice chancellor 3 years ago, it was hard. It was a really tough moment for all of us on campus, and especially those students. After that first rock incident, it was the first time I met Paige. And she had walked across the street from the rock and sat down on the sidewalk and was in tears. And all I could do was walk over and give her a hug. That was one of the hardest moments as a UT alum, as the parent of a UT student. That was one of the hardest moments I have ever faced on that campus. But the strength that came from that occurrence was greater than anything I had witnessed. I am so thankful to them for pursuing the live stream to get those cameras up, that the rock is viewed 24/7 now. So those messages, those beautiful messages, can go out to everyone. And so the monitoring of those hateful anti-Semitic messages are noted. I am so grateful to the other student groups on campus because they have stepped up. 2 instances when the rock was painted. The one was student government students who came and painted within 15 minutes of it happening. And the other one was the track team. We have a very, very strong support system within the student groups on campus for this policy change. And the fact that, we met a few months ago with the Vice Chancellor for Diversity and his team, and this is what started the ball rolling on this policy change. And I have to give kudos to Tyvee Small for really bringing this to fruition at this point. He has been an incredible support, and I am very grateful. But again, first and foremost, I am grateful to these students beyond words.
Thank you, Tara, and thank you to you also for providing the support and nurturing for their leadership on campus in general, and then particularly in these particularly challenging times. I'm going to invite those on the call if they either have questions they want to put in the chat, or in a moment I'll invite you if you'd like to unmute. But I just wanted to give everyone sort of an update on where we're at and just to understand. So as the student said, it seems like it should have been a simple policy change, but because of the nature of the university, it needs trustee involvement and then also state legislature involvement. And it's being brought before the Board of Trustees, not at their, it appears not at their February meeting, but the plan is that it will come to their attention at the June meeting. In the meantime, also, so everyone knows, all 4 of the major Jewish communities in Tennessee, Knoxville, Memphis, Chattanooga, and Nashville have all been working collectively. You have the support of the entire Jewish communities of the state of Tennessee, not just Knoxville and Nashville, but the entire state. All of us in the Jewish communities of Tennessee are here for you and supportive of you. And we will be working our angle in terms of working with the Board of Trustees and potentially the state legislature if that becomes necessary. But you're right, there's nothing simple about this process. It's a long, complicated process, and it does take dedication and perseverance. Is there anyone that wants to unmute? Anyone have a question from our audience for the students or a comment?
I'm not sure if you guys know, but what's the timeline? So when will the Board of Trust meet and when does it go to the legislature?
Our hope is that in June is when the next Board of Trustees meeting is. And we were told that hopefully by fall of this next semester, that the policy will be changed and that they will begin to implement it. So that is hope.
Yes, at one point there was a possibility of it being on the February agenda. The Board of Trustees meets twice a year, February and June. And at one point there seemed to be cautious optimism that it might get onto the agenda for February, but it now appears that it is not. So the plan is that it will be on the agenda in June. So Paige, are you graduating this spring?
Yes, I am graduating in May.
Okay, all right. Congratulations in advance. And so I guess you won't be, your leadership will have brought them to the promised land, but you won't be there quite in time, quite long enough to see the promised land. But Naveed, you're coming in as president, right? So you'll be president if all goes according to plan when the policy is changed for the fall?
Correct. I will be president until December of this year. And then I graduate next spring. So I will serve as immediate past president until I graduate.
So if you'll also both of you share just a little bit, not just on this particular issue, but how has campus changed in general through the COVID times? How are classes being handled? Just share a little bit about what it looks like at UTK during this time.
I think there was definitely an adjustment period right after we went online and then moving into this academic year in terms of students adjusting to online learning and professors adjusting to online learning. I think the only incredibly problematic thing we've had is Zoom bombings. So people will come into Zoom classes saying very racist, homophobic, just hateful speech and then kind of leaving. But the university has been they've been very on top of it in terms of letting campus know about these events and also instructing professors to put passwords on their Zooms. So I do think in general, professors are very understanding about, I mean, they're going through it too. So I think it's just kind of this, like, we're all in this together, we're trying to get through it kind of attitude that I've been experiencing for myself personally.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard. Virtual classes are hard. I can definitely tell you this has not been easy at all. I think, I mean, just personally for my major, it's been very difficult to have everything on Zoom. And when the times I do get to go to campus, I'm so excited, but then I'm like, oh, this kind of feels weird. Like this isn't how campus is normal. It normally is, or it's not how it's supposed to be. But I can't wait for things to get back to normal. I know I probably won't be able to get to experience it on campus, but it's just like, I think the overall morale of everybody is just kind of like, they're anxious to get back to normal because it's hard. It's hard for professors. It's hard for the students. It's hard for all staff. It's just that personal face-to-face connection goes a long way. And I think it was definitely taken for granted before, and now people are going to cherish it even more when we are allowed to do it.
That is beautifully said, Paige. Thanks. We have a question. Jessica, you can unmute yourself and ask?
I did. I was able to do it. I apologize. I am I'm not on video. I had back surgery a week ago, and Lunch and Learn is always a highlight of the week. So I wanted to come on, and then I saw it was going to be about Hillel, and I'm like, maybe I won't. And I'm so glad that I came. I have to tell you, both as, you know, a former chaplain at a university with a small Jewish population, as a mom, as a rabbi, as, you know, somebody who has gone through, who's lived through a lot of anti-Semitism, most of it being ignorance-based anti-Semitism rather than truly hatred-based anti-Semitism, and yet it still hurts. I just want to offer you, all of you, Naveed and Paige and Tara, so much kavod, so much honor for your strength and for your positivity and for your proactivity. I mean, to be students and to be, you know, really holding the administration accountable and doing all of that work. I promise you that as you move forward in your life, it will be this adversity, it will be these challenges that really, that you can draw on always, and they will be, you know, as important. And I know there are college professors on this call, so I don't want to piss them off, but I think it's as important as anything else that you're learning in college, the lessons that you're learning. And I so appreciate you, and I wish you a Shabbat Shalom, and hope that we can continue to support you. And if there's anything that I can ever do for you, I'm a new rabbi in town, and I have never gotten to really meet my Tennessee home. So at a certain point, I'll want to be driving your way, and would be happy to do, you know, something with you for Shabbat or anyway. Just wanted to say kol hakavod, you know, like all honor to you for everything that you're doing, and thank you for being with us today.
Thank you. Yes, I would echo that. I mean, there's a lot that students juggle under all circumstances, no matter what life is like, and you have clearly had to juggle more than most. And so we are all very appreciative of those leadership efforts. And you know, we hope that as Paige said, as you said, Paige, hopefully things will start to get a little bit more normal. I am encouraged with this new administration. It does seem like the new administration on campus. And Tara, maybe I'll ask you to say a word about how you're seeing the difference in response now versus the chancellor that was there even a few years ago, and how the campus response on this has shifted.
So, with the interim chancellor, there was almost a harshness in his response to the occurrence at the Rock, not just from him, but from several others within his administration. He refused to condone what was said publicly. He felt that it would just make things uncomfortable. Things were already uncomfortable.
Sorry, I'm sorry. Do you mean he refused to condemn what was said?
Sorry.
Okay,
sorry,
all right.
yes.
I just, yeah, okay, got it. Yeah.
I apologize.
Okay.
I'm very sleepy right now.
That's all right. No worry. I just wanted to be clear. Right.
And he was not very sympathetic. He was not very empathetic to the situation at hand. When we met with the new chancellor, Donde Plowman, the thing that struck me with her in that first meeting is She sat and listened to all of the students, didn't interrupt. She had this way of leaning forward and leaning in to actually really hear them. But once they were done talking, her comment to them all was, okay, I've heard your pain. I feel your pain. We've talked about it, but now what are we actually going to do about it? So despite the fact that this has been a very long process in a short period of time, the fact that they have tackled this through the live stream, through the Students for the Rock, and now for the policy change. I have not talked directly to her since we've had these conversations on the policy change, but from what I understand from her administration is that she is supportive of this. That is so much more than we received before. I hope, and Paige and Naveed can clarify this, but I hope that they feel that she does care about them. I know that we had an instance several months ago that the response was not there, and that was very, very difficult and very challenging. My hope is that we have created some statements. So Helene Senrick, who is the head of Judaic Studies at the university, she and I and Paige and Naveed met and created some statements for the university to send out when things like this happen. We also created things that will come out when things happen from the Federation side for Knoxville. And they embraced them. Tyvee Small wrote back and said, here's what we have, here's what we're going to be using. So when sadly, when something like this does happen, we are prepared and making sure that the entire university community is aware as well. So that's my hope.
Yes, it does. Paige or Naveed, anything you'd like to add to that? Because it does appear that there is forward and positive progress on this.
I do just want to say Chancellor Plowman has been very supportive. I just personally, when it is set in stone and when it is implemented is when I will relax. So yes, I think that she is on board and she's doing a great job, and Tyvee is doing an amazing job in being supportive, but I don't want to be comfortable. I want this to change. So I think that's the only way that our future students and current students are going to feel comfortable and felt heard on campus is when this is completed. So.
Yeah, I think that's very well said, that it's not over till it's over. It's still in process. We can feel a little bit more confident and a little bit more positive, but you're right, until the policy change is actually made so that it has some teeth, all of that, as Tara said, they have the video, they watch the rock, they can see who it is that's doing this. Until that policy change is made, there won't be a way to actually have teeth in that until that time. So you're right. I think it's good to be optimistic, but cautiously optimistic. The challenge still presents. I also just wanted to say that echoing what Jessica said earlier, the importance of all the other pieces of campus, Hillel being one of them, that when I had the honor of serving in that role, we would yearly have our sort of orientation at the beginning to say that while academics are what brings students to campus, and certainly that's the backbone of the campus experience, all the other experiences that you have on campus also are hugely important in your overall campus experience. And so the opportunities to be engaged with Hillel and with other student groups is also incredibly important to the overall. So are there, in addition to your leadership and involvement at Hillel, have there been other parts of campus that you have been involved in that have led to your overall experience in Knoxville?
Along with being a member of Hillel, I'm also a part of the women's ultimate frisbee team. And that has also been very instrumental in forming my college experience. Some of my best friends I've met through the team, and it keeps me active. And pre-COVID, I was able to travel. So just through Hillel and frisbee, I've been able to connect to different parts of campus. I help volunteer in the zooarchaeology lab at UT. So I just trying to find different ways to connect with campus and different groups of people. I mean, people always say when you go to campus, find a group, find something, that's the way you connect. And there really is no other way, but it's phenomenal. And I think being able to meet new people and just expand my cultural horizon has been amazing.
I've been on, sorry, I'm like very like tired, like Tara said, and my brain is like everywhere. I'm a part of ACE, which is the all campus group. So I was able to help out with homecoming this year, and they do 2 other events, all sing and Carnicus. So I'll be able to help behind the scenes with that kind of stuff. And then I'm also a part of BOSS, which is the dance company group on campus. So that is super fun. Just like, I love to dance, so it's been a great passion to be able to connect there. And it's just awesome to be a part of homecoming on the other side, like to help plan the events and work with the events and see everybody like be involved and have like their school spirit. So that's been really cool.
That's beautiful. So let me ask, as we move, more into spring semester, what, if anything, is planned for celebrations for Passover coming up in coming weeks?
So first of all, next week is Purim. We're doing a little Purim spiel. We're going to record it and send it out. So we're very excited for Purim, doing a little costume contest. For Passover, we wanted to give students an opportunity that if they aren't able to go home, if they aren't comfortable going to a synagogue or somewhere to do a Seder, we're going to do a second night Seder so that people can have that experience and be able to fulfill that Passover tradition. Like we do, and every year we will have a Passover friendly meal. Normally we come together and make matzah pizza or matzah lasagna. We're not able to do that this year, but we will have an event where we will share a Passover friendly meal over Zoom. So those are the 2 main things we have planned for Passover.
Beautiful. Before we can, I will again invite anyone who has questions, but I'm wondering if so we've talked about the very public anti-Semitic incidents at the Rock by those neo-Nazi groups. Have there been other more private or sort of more under the radar experiences you've had in that vein? Or has that really been pretty much the problem on campus?
For me, that's pretty much been the problem. Whenever I share my Jewish identity with anyone, it's always received in a positive light. All my friends think it's so cool. I work at Sunspot. It's a local restaurant. Everyone thinks it's so cool. They always ask questions. So personally, I've never had a bad experience, which I think echoes the idea that it's not a campus issue. It's not something, although there are people will sketch like swastikas in library carousels and stuff like that. But in general, like it's a very welcoming campus, at least in my experience. So like, that's why it's off campus stuff.
Paige, anything you'd like to add to that?
I personally, I don't think I've really experienced anything. Like, I'm happy to say I haven't really experienced anything. There's one incident that had when Maya and Violet came to speak on campus, where there were some groups that were protesting against it, but I think that had to do with a completely different issue. And I attached myself personally to that situation because I'm Jewish and she's Jewish, and it's something like, but nothing besides incidents that have happened on the Rock.
And how about in terms of Israel and Israel celebration and connection to Israel? Have there been any issues or pushback or any uncomfortable situations related to that? I mean, we hear a lot about that on some campuses. There are some campuses where pro-Israel activity has been really problematic. I'm not aware of that at UTK, but I'm just wondering if that has come up for you at all.
I believe that was when Mayim Bialek was on our campus. There was a group who was protesting against like anti-Israel and that kind of stuff. Standing outside with posters and handing out different pamphlets and stuff, and kind of not necessarily getting in people's faces, but definitely like questioning their attendance at her seminar, her speaking. And then at the end of the whole presentation, they like came in and were like yelling stuff. But that has been the only experience of that happening on campus for me.
To clarify, Mayim Bialek, although she is Jewish, she was not on campus giving a talk for anything Israel related. It was for her career and her profession that she was giving a talk. And I will say at the time, one of the board members did send a message, because I think it was like a progressive student group. And so he sent a message just kind of being like, I want you, to the president of the organization, being like, I want you to recognize that like you have made your fellow Vols, your fellow Jewish Vols feel very uncomfortable and a little hurt by what you've done. And their response, I don't really know how to describe their response. The response was pretty much like, well, we have a like we deserve to do this because like Israel's so bad. And they just listed a whole bunch of examples. And that I read through, it was a very long, they posted it on Facebook. It was a very long post. And when I read it, I lost it because my dad is from Israel. And so I have family in Israel. So like understanding that aspect of like, from that perspective, just like the accusations that they made and just stuff like that. But that was the only really big thing that I can think of that involved like Israel on campus.
Tara, anything on that you'd like to add to this piece of the conversation?
No, I was at the Mayim Bialek talk and witnessed some of that. Her talk, she was there for STEM, for women in STEM mainly, but this one group brought the Israel-Palestine thing to light, and they were standing outside handing things out, but I walked around Robin Hood's barn to get away. So other than that, that's it. I'm with Paige and Naveed. I can't think of anything else that's happened on campus.
Adam, did you have a question you'd like to share?
It's really nice to hear about how the leadership of the university has changed and been so supportive. I mean, I can tell you from working, with Hillels on campus and on campuses without Hillels, if you have the support of the leadership of the university, even though things are going to happen, you have that comfort level that stuff is going to happen, right? And these groups will say whatever they want to say regardless, right? They'll use Mayim Bialek as just an excuse. But when you hear that the leadership of the university sends out that email, it just gives you the comfort factor of you are supported at the very, very highest levels. And there's no other feeling for students when you know that the leader of a university takes that time to have your back. There's no doubt about it. And I want to echo what Deborah said, so annually we give a grant through our process to UTK Hillel. And we just, Tara knows this, it's one of these grants we don't even debate, right? The question is how much, not ever if. because even though, UTK isn't in Nashville, I think it's very obvious that we see UTK as one of our universities, and the Hillel students and all of you as our students. And from coming from one former Hillel leader, like Jessica said, to another, it's just so impressive of the work that you're doing, and and the work that Tara's doing, and the support you get from the community that you're in. So it's always a good feeling to hear other next generations. You can be very proud, Tara.
Yeah, it's a wonderful. It's great.
Madam. Thank you.
So we're coming close on time, and I know you're all busy with your campus schedule. So I'll just ask the group, any final comments or questions before we close, or anything that any final comments either from Paige or Naveed, or other questions before we start to close.
Let's see.
Sorry, Celia, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I've been in the dark here. I'm just listening to this, and I'm really bothered by this thing with Mayim Bialik. Her talk was not for anything about Israel, right? It was just about women's STEM.
Correct.
So why do you think this happened with the Israel issue coming up? And what's being, how's that being taken?
So this happened, I want to say it was spring of 2019. So it was my freshman year. I'm now a junior. I think because Mayim Bialik is Jewish and she does support Israel and is very open about the fact that she supports Israel, I think they took that as an opportunity to share their beliefs and protest, although it had nothing to do with it. I think it was just, here's a chance.
Celia, it's what they do. They will use any hook. They will use any hook to make their case, which just proves the lack of strength of their case, which is they have to condemn someone who's coming onto campus with the background that she has, inspiring young women, right, to go into sciences, God forbid, right, for their own little agenda. It's Tara knows this, Deborah knows this, anyone who's worked on campus or with campus, that's, in some ways, I have to say, that's all they got. And if that's all they got, we see it for what it exactly is, which is pure pettiness. And it's not only on campus, but it's in a lot of other places as well, but happens on campus more than often. And, again, thank God the university had their back, which is what they should have in these cases. But it's more common than you think, and it's very unfortunate. It happened also to Scarlett Johansson when she was an ambassador for, I think, Amnesty International, and Scarlett Johansson decided to tell Amnesty International to go take a flying leap. So they lost.
I know it happens, but I didn't really know about UTK or where. I just had not heard that was an issue there. So, but unfortunately, it does happen too much. And one other thought I meant to ask before is, so it seems like this is the rock and everything that there's been anti-Semitic and other things. And I guess you talked about some of the Zoom bombing with other groups targeted. But the rock, has that only been targeted towards Jews, or how many other hate-related issues might you be aware of?
I mean, there has been plenty of racist slurs written on there and homophobic, many different occasions, just from all over political things. Like it's just something that people will use to coming off campus. Rarely is it on campus, but people just use to express their freedom of speech to express that hate. But it has been that's why we're really stressing in the petition that this isn't just a Jewish issue, this is an all campus issue, and that this will help keep Vols accountable and to just make it a safe campus for everybody. It's not just for Jewish students.
Right. My understanding is that all of that kind of hateful messaging, whether it's targeted to Jews or the LGBTQ community or the Black community, has been from off campus. So this policy change that you are promoting would make that better for all of the student groups. And that's why it isn't just a Jewish student group issue, but really is a campus issue, that you don't want your rock on your campus to be used by these outside groups for this kind of messaging. And I think that's what you were sharing, is that it's not just a Jewish issue. You took the leadership on it, but you've encouraged the entire campus to come behind you. So at this point, I just want to thank you both, and thank you, Tara, for joining us and sharing your insight and expertise on this. And thank you everyone who joined us today to see how much and why we love the students at UTK. These are just, both Paige and Naveed are beautiful representatives of the leadership there, and students on campus. Yes, big wave, and a shout out to all of you. Our guest for next week will be Ginny Pooper Walker with the public school. She's a member of the MMPS board. But really, we just wish you all the best. Hopefully, maybe we can reconnect with you a little bit once that policy really comes up for conversation. We can do sort of an update on that and check in and see what's happening. In the meantime, just know that we here in the Nashville community are here for you and behind you and supportive of you. And Shabbat Shalom. Thank you all for joining us today. Thank you so much.
Shabbat Shalom. Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Nicely done. Thank you.